Hello and welcome to Salute Your Sports. Kamen Entchev here with Tom Casselman. We are pumped for a fun show today. We've got the biggest game of the NFL season so far. The 2-1 Buffalo Bills host the 3-0, 70-point scoring Miami Dolphins. Who wins this massive AFC East showdown with division implications, playoff implications on the line, playoff seeding implications? This is a massive, massive game out there in Buffalo. Speaking of big games, Packers and Lions. They're both 2-1. It's early in the season, but with the Vikings and Bears 0-3, this game right here feels like a massive game as far as who is going to win the NFC North. That is the Thursday night football game this week. So that'll be fun to preview. We've got the Toilet Bowl this week. The Bears and the Broncos, the Toilet Bowl, as I'm deeming it. This is actually two teams, which I'll tell you, Tom Casselman, I had both finishing last in their divisions, so I was not buying into any hype about Justin Fields, any hype about the Bears, any hype about Sean Payton and the Broncos. For the record, I thought both of those teams were very overhyped going into the season. But a lot of national media, a lot of fans of the Bears and Broncos went in with maybe even playoff expectations. As bad as I thought both of those teams would be, they have looked even worse than expected. Which one has been more disappointing? Maybe the Toilet Bowl, maybe the Caleb Williams Bowl in this one. Speaking of Caleb Williams, here's your transition. All the Colorado and Deion Sanders primetime talk. We have not spent any time talking about Caleb Williams, who might be making history. One player in the history of college football has won 2 Heisman trophies. That is the great Archie Griffin, Ohio State running back, all the way back in 1974 and 1975. Can Caleb Williams be the second 2-time Heisman Trophy winner? We'll be talking about that. Plus, it's Wednesday, September 27th right now, Tom. What does that mean? That means baseball season, at least the regular season, is almost over. 5-6 games left, depending on the schedule. We are winding down here. Who's going to make the playoffs? The AL and NL wild card are both bunched up. Better be careful. Don't lose the ball in the lights. It could cost your season. If you follow the Cubs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll have our betting locks of the week, by the way. What a week it was. Strong showing. 5-1 as a show. We are both over 500 3 weeks in. I may have just put the jinx on us, but Tom, something told me week 3 of Salute Your Sports, we're going to start looking like geniuses on betting locks of the week. If you've been taking our picks and betting with us, you certainly did great this weekend. I'll say that much. You're doing pretty good as a whole as well. So that is something that definitely was not the case last year. So improvements is the name of the game. We'll have our sports trivia, statements of the week, and plenty more. Looking forward to a fun show today, Tom. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Just a great slate of games this week, as you said, for myriad reasons. I mean, we're going to be starting off in just a little over 24 hours with a nice divisional matchup. The last time the Lions and Packers matching up, sending a team home disappointed for a playoff berth. Certainly this game isn't going to rise to that level of importance as there's still plenty of season to go. But like you said, the biggest game to start it out with is Buffalo and Miami. Miami, as you said, coming off of a 50-point win over the Denver Broncos, 70-20, had an opportunity to break the record for most points scored in a regular season game, not in a all
together. Yeah, all together. They could have tied the record with the field goal, broke it with the touchdown.
Exactly. So,
which they should have done, by the way. I disagree with kneeling, but whatever. Keep going. Sorry.
I agree with kneeling.
Of course,
but that's not something that we're going to do.
And we don't have to discuss that. You're good. I'm just saying, go for the record. Let's have some fun.
You've got the Buffalo Bills, who, after a really rough week 1 of the season, where we saw out of control Josh Allen, we've now seen in control Josh Allen And look at what happens when really talented players don't try to do too much. They attain really nice levels of success. So I think that this game, I mean, we'll just jump right into it. The Bills and the Dolphins, indicative of kind of what the public perception is. It's going to be in Buffalo. It's a 3-point spread for the Buffalo Bills, which means it's more or less like a 1-point favor to as far as that home.
Well,
home
they
field
say
advantage goes.
3 points, Tom, is what they say is the home field advantage.
That's common consensus. Some sharp
if it was
bettors,
a neutral
Yeah.
field game, they would consider it a pick 'em.
Yeah, some sharp bettors are starting to move that home field advantage down to like 2 points, point and a half type of thing. But
Sure.
the common knowledge, sure, is that 3-point range. So more or less a toss up. And just to kind of like dig into, who's going to win, why they're going to win the game. I mean, the Dolphins put up 70 points without Jalen Waddle, their second best wide receiver on the team, playing last week. But then again, kind of looking at the Dolphins' schedule, they haven't played anybody at the caliber of the Buffalo Bills. This is the first really, really big test this season for them. I mean, they had that overtime, high-scoring win against the Chargers in Week 1, and then they had a close game against the New England Patriots in Week 2, and then of course
somewhat close game. Again, the score was deceptive.
Yeah.
They were in control the whole game.
They were in control, but certainly, I mean, and this is where I'm going with this point. The New England Patriots certainly hang their head on defense this year more than offense. They got stifled pretty easily. The Buffalo Bills also have a really good defense as well. So this is the type of game where I think there's going to be a lot of overreaction to the Dolphins in this one. And I'm not saying that if you pick the Dolphins to win, it's because of last week. There's certainly merits for picking the Dolphins to win.
I had them in the AFC title game before the season started,
exactly,
Tom. That's my squad.
Exactly. But for me, I'm going to lean with Buffalo slightly on this one.
I know you would.
Because it's all fun and games with Mike McDaniel drawing up the plays that he was able to drop. And at a certain point, it kind of felt like Miami's just having fun with some of the play calls that they're doing and some of what they're making. The Buffalo Bills are a huge, huge step up in class from the Denver Broncos going from week to week. So anybody who's looking at that 70-point game and saying, of course not, obviously they're going to be putting up 70 points on the regular, but saying, hey, this is going to be a team that can easily or consistently put up 30 points against a defense like Buffalo, caution is what I would say. I think the Buffalo defense is good enough, fast enough, smart enough. I mean, Sean McDermott is a phenomenal defensive coach. I think that this is going to be a pretty close game either way. I think that there's a little bit, I mean, Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa. Not to say that Tua is bad.
I don't agree with that, by the way. Do not agree with that. No.
Right. At the beginning of the season, we were saying Josh Allen was what? 4th on the list. All of a sudden, Tua's jumped up to be behind Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow.
I had Tua 5th on my list, by the way, Tom, if healthy. I already had him ahead of Herbert personally. So
okay, if you want to do that, that's fine. Sure. I'm just saying Josh Allen, if you ask any number of people who are fans of the league or within the game, they're going to say Josh Allen 9 times out of 10. Josh Allen is going to be that number one Family Feud answer who's the better quarterback.
I don't agree with that at all, personally.
Well,
they're neck and neck for me. Tua's much more accurate as a passer, significantly more accurate, much better decision maker. He's actually a better quarterback at every measure except for arm strength and athleticism. Allen has more talent. But as far as a quarterback, it's like comparing Josh Allen and Drew Brees. Josh Allen's more talented than Drew Brees. Tua is like Drew Brees. He's got that incredible accuracy. I don't agree with that statement, just for the record, Tom. Go ahead.
If you want to disagree, that's totally fine. I mean, I'm going with Bills because I think their defense is going to be on par with what New England was as far as just pure ability. And certainly their offense is much, much better than what New England is putting together. So, I mean, slight edges to the Buffalo Bills in the offensive and defensive phases of the game. And then head coaching, we're going to get a really, really fun chess match because Mike McDaniel is showing that he is, if not the best, one of the best play callers and play designers in the NFL right now. Again, I think, not to necessarily say that it was cutesy, but at a certain point, I mean, he's just dialing up all sorts of different stuff, and it's working against a woeful team like the Broncos. that's funny, cutesy. When you have that big type of lead, it puts it on tape for other coaches to have to try to prepare for and defend against. But I mean, we've seen cutesy before, and it didn't really work for the Chicago Bears, for example, when they had Matt Nagy, and that first year where we saw a lot of cutesy plays that got them a lot of points. But ultimately, there wasn't a lot of substance behind that. Certainly, the Dolphins have plenty of substance, but I think that the Bills are just a little bit better, and I think that they're going to have a slight edge in winning this game on Sunday.
Yeah, I disagree. I think Miami is the better team. I think that, first off, it's a great litmus test for both teams because neither team has played a great team either. The Bills have played the Jets. They played Washington. They played the Raiders. Three bad teams. The Dolphins played the Patriots. The Chargers, who should be a good team. I think that was a good win. Again, I think the Chargers had a couple bad losses without Austin Eckler week 2. I actually think the Charger win with Eckler playing is a pretty nice win on the road, but certainly the Patriots and the Broncos, not as nice wins. This is going to be a close game. I agree with that part of your analysis. I think the last 3 times they played last year, all 3 games decided by 3 points or less. So I don't think it's going to be a 50-point Miami win. But one thing I will caution you against the Bills defense, they tend to fold against the best offensive teams. They are kind of like the 2016 Chicago Cubs in that they have all these amazing games where the Cubs would score 12, 13 runs. And then you look at their stats, you're like, oh my God, this offense is amazing. But then you have these 1 or 2 run games. The Bills have all these games where they give up 0 points, they give up 3 points, 7 points against lesser teams. Against Kansas City in the playoffs, they have been absolutely torched. Even against Minnesota last year at home, a lot of these games, the Bills defense is very good, but I think they're not as good as the numbers say. I think they pick up wins. It's the classic stat padding. They stat pad against a team like Washington. Not that they're doing it like, Russell Westbrook with rebounding, but I think we've seen this defense in the playoffs fold a lot. They have not delivered in the playoffs. I don't trust Buffalo's defense against a very good offense. Even against Miami in the playoffs with their third-string quarterback last year. Had some issues, Buffalo did. They had some issues against the Bengals. So I say, wait a minute on that Buffalo defense. As far as the offense, I think Miami is not much better, but considerably better on offense. I really do, because it's the same deal in Buffalo in the playoffs. Miami has 2 great receivers in Hill and Waddle. The Bills have 1 great receiver in Stephon Diggs. Miami apparently now with Mostert and A-Chain, they have 2 really good running backs. Buffalo has 1 in Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook, who is emerging as that running back they've needed. But there is a lot more weapons, a lot more shiny toys in Miami. They have a better play caller as the head coach. I think they've got a better offense for me. Again, not by a lot. The Bills are the second highest scoring offense in the league. The Dolphins average 13 more points than them. Yes, they're not going to average 70. Yes, the stats are skewed. But I think, Tom, they are very capable of putting up, I don't know if it's 30, but, 27 points, which could be enough to win the game. Maybe 30. They are very capable of putting up those numbers against the Buffalo Bills. Yes, it was the Broncos, but you got to put this game into the history of the game. You put up 70 points, the 3rd most points in the NFL. They were in basically the red zone area with 2-3 minutes to go. Had they wanted to break the record for 77 points, they would have. They actually had at one point, they were right there for most total yards of all time, and they started kneeling going backwards. They could have had the most yards, the most points, first team ever with 5 rushing touchdowns and 5 passing touchdowns. This Miami team is the real deal. Yes, they're not going to score 70 regularly, but they are just that good. And their defense is pesky. I know the Bills have the 2nd best scoring defense. Miami's allowed more points, but Miami is known for getting turnovers. They have the 7th most this year in the league. They got plenty of turnovers against the Broncos. I just think there's a lot more depth in Miami. Again, the Tua Josh Allen debate I know where you're going with it. Obviously, I think the Dolphins without Tua were a much different team. I always use the Teddy Bridgewater test. Teddy Bridgewater was a very solid starting quarterback for many years. He looked like a JV quarterback in that Miami offense last year. So it's like a weird thing. I think that a lot of folks don't give Tua enough credit. Yes, McDaniel's great. Yes, Hill's great. Yes, Waddle's great. Tua makes that offense work. For me, Tom, the classic eye test, a lot of guys at Alabama, a lot of great players there. I know Jalen Hurts got much better after college, but if I'm looking at the quarterbacks I watched in college football, Tua was better than Kyler Murray for me. He was better than Trevor Lawrence for me. I think that Tua is that great. I think he's been so underrated, and I think he's not getting enough respect simply because he doesn't have as cannon of an arm, but he is the Tyreek Hill said it last year in camp, Tom, and I got to agree with them. Tua is the most accurate passing quarterback in the NFL right now, even more than Patrick Mahomes. So I think part of the whole debate is that you, like many other people, are actually greatly underappreciating Tua. Now, he was in a system, you know how Justin Fields is failing in Chicago? Tua was put in just as bad of a position, and he had much better numbers than Justin Fields 2-3 years ago, despite playing hurt. You put him in the right position now, he's leading the league in passer rating, QBR. He's second in yards, second in touchdowns. He's the MVP candidate right now. He's the leading MVP candidate right now, Tua, for me. So I think a lot of folks are selling Tua very, very short. And I know McDaniel is great. I know Tyreek Hill was great. Tua is not getting nearly enough credit. He had more touchdown passes than incompletions in the last game. So that's where you and I disagree. That's where there's a big difference because I think Miami's got a lot more talent on offense than Buffalo overall. And I think that Tua, Josh Allen, for me, are like neck and neck. Depends on the team, depends on what you need. I could sit here and say either one is better. Tua is considerably more accurate, considerably a smarter quarterback than Josh Allen. Josh Allen has the arm strength. He's got the athleticism. But if you put Tua on the Bills and you put Josh Allen on the Dolphins, I would say the records would be about the same. I really do. I really think that because Allen may make a couple more big plays. He'd make a couple more mistakes. I don't think Miami is better with Josh Allen as quarterback than Tua. I really don't. But that's just my take. It's early in the season. We can revisit this later. But I do like Miami in this game. That's for me as a sports bettor, which I love to bet. The fact that we can get Miami at plus money on the money line, I
already put that down for one of your locks for the week. Yeah. So you only have to pick two games. So I already put that one in for you.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the +3 though, just because I can on the show. But I'll be betting both.
I put you down on +3 already for that.
But they were really good covering last year and the year before. Consistently one of the best teams against the spread, the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and the only shame of it this week is that it's going to be on the noon slate. It's going to be 11 a.m. on the East Coast, noon Central. This really feels, or 1 o'clock East Coast, noon Central. This really feels like it should be in a prime time spot. It should be, that late afternoon, early evening slate. It's a little early in the season, but I bet Sunday Night Football would love to flex this game in over the Chiefs and Jets now that Aaron Rodgers is out.
Just to be clear, too, this is such a massive game for Buffalo because I know it's early in the season. There's a long season left. But if Miami is 4-0, up 2 games on the Bills, 2 conference games, 2 division games, and they would essentially, assuming they beat them the next time, which could happen as well, they would have the tiebreaker. Buffalo is in big trouble. It's a must-win game if they wanted to win the division for me. Because if Miami wins this game, Buffalo is toast in the AFC East. Yeah. Not toast for the playoffs. They'll get in the playoffs. Their team is good enough to get in the playoffs. But this is, for Miami, they can lose this game and still win the division. For me, if Buffalo loses this game, they are not winning the AFC East. And I think for me, it's Miami smells, the shark in the water. They smell it. This is their time. This is a franchise that has not been winning. They haven't won. 72 Dolphins. That was a long time ago. A long time ago, Tom. So it is, for all this Miami talk, we're here to make a prediction. Buffalo is very, very good. I am not fully convinced Miami's winning. I think Buffalo does have a better defense. I do agree with that part. But my whole take, Tom, is that in the modern game, the better offense now beats the better defense. I look at it, Miami's better on offense, Buffalo's better on defense. What would I rather have in 2023? This isn't 2000. Sure, in 2000, if these two teams played in 2000 with the 2000 rules, I'll take the Bills. I really would. This is 2023. I'm taking the Fins, baby.
Absolutely. Well, that's certainly going to be a good game to watch. Hopefully, it's available for those of us who use Mirror-free TV. But a game that we'll be able to watch if you have Amazon Prime is going to be the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. This is going to be a big matchup. First time Jordan Love is going up against this particular division rival. I believe it's a pretty close line favoring the Lions on the road. So, Kamen, breaking it down, what do you see coming as some of the big keys for this game? I believe Christian Watson, Aaron Jones are both expected to play. I know they have questionable designations, but there is optimism that they will be in the game. Lions don't have any major injury updates or anything along those lines, but the Packers certainly getting some reinforcement. So is that enough to tip the balance where the home dog is going to eke out the win, or do you think that the Lions are going to continue on this upward trajectory after beating the Falcons last week?
Yeah, it's a total toss-up. It really is. The 1.5 point spread, which is interesting to me because I would have thought it would be even or Green Bay by 1.5. So that leads me to believe that, yes, on a neutral field, Vegas thinks the Lions are better.
Well, and that there's a lot of public money on the Lions too. That's also kind of what that's indicative of.
Yes, they do. They kind of forecast what people are going to say. It's going to be a really close game. I have this. We have this thing at work we do. On my sports podcast, selling sports memorabilia. It's an internal work pool where we do the same thing you and I do, where we pick games. We got to place confidence points on them, kind of like our college thing we do. I have one confidence point on this game. That's what I have right now. This is the game I feel the least good about in the entire NFL slate. It is wide open. I think teams are very, very close talent-wise, but we got to make a pick, Tom. Even though last year the Lions had Green Bay's number, I'm picking the Packers. I am. I've been very impressed with Green Bay. Great comeback against the Saints last week. And Jordan Love has looked really, really good. That's without Christian Watson, his top receiver. If he does play in the game, that's a massive, massive X factor for the Packers. Aaron Jones out last week. That's a massive, massive X factor. These teams, I think Green Bay's better on defense, Tom. I think Detroit's better on offense, even though I in the last segment, I just got done saying that, offense is more important than defense. But Miami has a good defense. Detroit, I'm still not sold on their defense. I know they've looked better, but against the Seahawks, they give up a lot of points. Atlanta's not a great offensive team. There was a lot of fluke plays against the Chiefs. I think the Lions are better on offense, but I think the gap between how much better Green Bay is on defense versus Detroit is significantly bigger. Green Bay has a great defense. They're playing at home. This is one of those teams where they played on a neutral field 100 times. I might pick 50-50, maybe 51 Green Bay. But this is at Lambeau Field. It's a tough place to play. I know they won last year, but that's not something they've done very often. I like Green Bay to win. I'm not convinced of it, but I think Green Bay leans on that defense at home and gets a close win against Detroit. And you did have Green Bay winning the division, Tom. I think Green Bay is going to win this division. I think they're back. They probably should have made the playoffs last year. This year, win the North and make the playoffs. As a Bear fan, it's terrible to say, but it's going to be Green Bay.
Yeah, no, I'm going with Green Bay as well. Really quickly, David Montgomery, Taylor Decker on the Detroit Lions. Important running back and offensive lineman. So there are some injury updates that we don't have quite yet, but definitely things to keep an eye on. And of course, Jair Alexander, the phenomenal
He's great.
cornerback for the Green Bay Packers. That's another injury, David Bakhtiari. So this game, I mean, a lot is probably going to come down to health and who is actually available based on what we kind of are hearing rumor wise. Of course, coaches aren't really going to confirm anything until they have to 90 minutes before kickoff. But with all that said, with the optimism, I'm also going with the Packers to win this game at home. I mean, we saw what they were able to do against a pretty good Saints defense, and we saw that game flip. Once Derek Carr was out with that arm injury, Jameis Winston comes in. All of a sudden, the Saints lost the balance. Packers were able to hang tight, not allow any more points, and build up enough. Momentum's not the right word, but they were on the field for a pretty good chunk of time in the second half, and were able to eke out a win. Plus, shout out really quickly to Matt LaFleur and using, I know analytics gets a bad name, but we saw exactly why analytics
They went for
in a
two.
really nice situation, because mathematically you're more likely to get it at least once as opposed to not getting it both times. But for me, yeah, it's going to be the Packers getting Aaron Jones back most likely. That is going to be a huge boon for this offense, because we saw what he did against the Chicago Bears, absolutely torching
Oh
them.
boy.
He's a really important weapon, and having a running back who can both run and catch is incredibly important for a young and developing quarterback. And Jordan Love, I mean, we're seeing the touchdowns certainly pile up. He's definitely getting it done as far as putting points on the board, but we've definitely seen accuracy issues. We've seen him miss throws. We've seen him, he's still learning on the job, so to speak, and he's in a good situation to continue to learn. But the health for the Packers, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I give them a slight edge as of right now based on where the injury news is trending. But of course, if all of these really key important players end up not playing, I can obviously see the Lions winning this game as
He's
well.
not turning the ball over though. That's a good thing for him.
That's a pretty decent starting point,
Sure.
quite
Pretty
frankly.
important, as we know.
Yeah, I mean, and so now we're
Oh boy.
that's two really good games. But yeah, we're going to get into a matchup of the stoppable force against the movable
Oh,
object. We've got the Bears and the Broncos. Not, in fact, the only 0-3 matchup we have this week. We also have Vikings and Panthers. And I can tell you, as a Bears fan, I am pulling for the Vikings and I'm pulling for the Broncos to be winning these games, because the Chicago Bears own, of course, their own first round pick and the Panthers' first round pick. So give it at least something for us to hang our hats on, because I know you said high expectations coming into the season. It certainly wasn't coming from our show. Neither of us
no,
had the Bears or the
no.
Broncos
Last
anywhere near the
place.
playoffs. Let's see, did I have? I don't think I had the Bears over the Vikings. I didn't split it out as each one, but I definitely.
I
I mean,
don't
the
know if I
biggest
said it on
disappointment.
the show, or I think I
Yeah,
did say Bears last, but I have,
yeah.
I think I had Bears last, but I don't
This
know how
is
I ranked them.
this is certainly a case where, if not necessarily high expectation as far as win your division, be a wild card team comes into play, certainly the high expectation of showing improvement. It's a low bar, but we have to start somewhere. And I mean, we've seen nothing but regression from the Chicago Bears. Quite frankly, we got through all of last season with them going for the tank as followers of the Bears. We understood the vision and where things were going. They were promising us jetpacks this year, and I'm looking around with my 2 feet on the ground, and there's nobody whizzing around in the air. We were promised jetpacks, and we've gotten more of the same. The Broncos, I'm going to say, are slightly less disappointing, because we saw they're still really mercurial, but they were at least up big against Washington, and then they were down big against Washington, and then they came back to be a 2-point conversion away of sending that game into overtime. So I think that's still a process, given that you have a coach of the caliber of Sean Payton and a quarterback of the caliber of Russell Wilson, even in a diminished aged state.
Sure.
I think that there's a little bit more to show for Denver and what they're doing so far this season. I mean, losing by a single point to the Las Vegas Raiders, again, that close, and then got their doors blown off by the Miami Dolphins. I think much like that skews in the favor of Miami in this Buffalo matchup, I also think that skews against Denver and kind of their long season outlook. If they only lost, say, 30-20, I don't think we would be having these conversations about them being super disappointing, because quite frankly, 0-3 start was within their range of outcomes. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I had the Raiders finish ahead of them in the division, so I was not shocked by week one. Week 2, again, total toss-up. They should be probably 1-2. I think you
Sure.
look at the Commanders and Raiders game, I would say those three
They should
teams
have won one of
probably
them.
all even. They should have been 1-1. I think the 2 of those games were at home. So they should be 1-2. But, 0-3, not that different. The Bears are easily more disappointing because they have no semblance of life on offense. I thought they got way too much hype. You know this. I'm not a Justin Fields fan, which, by the way, Tom, on that play where he gets hurt, they kick the field goal, comes back in the game, he had Cole Kmet wide open. So, again, you could sit here about saying they got to use him right, they got to do this and that, but he keeps missing wide open guys each week. It's every week, it's like, which wide open players Justin Fields not going to find? Because they should have gotten a touchdown on that drive if he picks his head up, if he's like Tua, if he finds the open guy. But Justin Fields, of course, is nowhere near Tua as a quarterback. So, I want to reset Caleb Williams. Can the Bears mess him up? Probably. But can they improve massively with Caleb Williams over Justin Fields? 100% they can. I was very low on Justin Fields. You know this very well. I hated the trade. I wanted Bryce Young. I preferred C.J. Stroud. I know it's easy for me to say that now, but in hindsight, yes, I definitely was never high on Justin Fields, but I did think they would get a little bit better, right? 3 wins last year. This does not look like a team that can win 3 games. Their offense has regressed, and they got DJ Moore, who, again, overhyped by Bears fans, 100%. I was one of the first guys saying he's not Randy Moss. Bear fans were treating him like Randy Moss. Under 1,000 receiving yards last year, DJ Moore. A very good player, not a great player. He's the guy who you want as your number 2 receiver, Tom. But still, they got a better receiver than they had last year. They should have gotten better. They didn't. Right now, Denver's allowed the most points in the league. The Bears have allowed the second most. For all this Justin Fields talk, really what's even more disappointing is the Bears' defense. For the longest time in Chicago, we've known the Bears to be a great defensive team. What did they do in the last few drafts? They drafted defense. What did they do? They hired a defensive coach. For them, they have the second worst defense in the league by points. And if it wasn't for the 70 points against the Dolphins, they really have the worst defense in the league. That is absolutely terrible. You can make a case right now, Tom. I could sit here and say that the Bears have the worst offense in the league and the worst defense in the league. You can really make that case. There's numbers, there's stats, there's the eye test. They are the worst team in the league. There is not a team, if they played the Cardinals tomorrow, the Cardinals would whoop them. The Broncos are a 3-point favorite. You better believe I'm taking all my money on Denver -3 this weekend. So, yes, the Bears have been more disappointing than Denver, no question. Denver this weekend should beat them. The Bears have lost every game by double digits so far. The NFL is full of parity. We have all these evenly matched teams. Right now, Tom, there is 3 3-0 teams and 4 0-3 teams. Bears and Broncos. We got Vikings and Panthers. Assuming there's not a tie, we're going to have 2 teams that have lost every game. And we could have what? I mean, Eagles play the Niners this year. We've got the Dolphins at some point. They play the Chiefs, the Bills twice. They play a lot of good teams. We could be at week 5 or 6 and have no teams that are undefeated or defeated except for the Bears. That's where we stand right now. So I think Denver, again, 2 close games. You lose by 1 point, you lose by 2 points. I mean, they've got Russell Wilson at QB, he's looked okay. Obviously, he's past it. But Russell Wilson has not been the problem. He's been decent enough. Like their offense has been decent enough. They're a pretty average team on offense, which the whole saying was they were so bad on offense the last few years. You get them an average offense, they're in the playoffs. Now, all of a sudden, that defense has regressed out of nowhere. Vic Fangio, by the way, Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator. That's something that we didn't talk about when it comes to the Bills showdown. Miami might have the best offensive coach and the best defensive coach in the league. NFL's the one
Fangio fan.
Yeah, NFL's the one sport that I think coaching matters more than any other sport. And I think Miami has the best coaching staff Maybe the Chiefs again. Andy Reid is Andy Reid.
Steve
He's great.
Spagnuolo. Yeah,
Spagnuolo's
I'd go
good.
Chiefs first. Yeah,
But I think Fangio's probably better than Spagnuolo. So they're either the best coach team or the second best coach team. Which one thing we didn't mention: Mike McDaniel, Denver Broncos ball boy, put up 70 on the Broncos. And I don't know if you saw the stuff online. Sean Payton last year predicted that Tua would get benched halfway through the season. So Sean Payton talking about Nathaniel Hackett. I don't like Sean Payton as a person, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I can acknowledge he's a good coach. We have the bounty gates. We've got him. Maybe he doesn't understand other talent in the NFL. He can call up good plays, but the more and more I hear from him, the more and more I'm like, wait a minute. Like, why did he make these comments? Like, and you're 0-3, buddy. Like, and that's what I think about the Broncos, too. I think there's not as much talent as we thought there is in Denver. And I kind of pointed that out last year. I kind of felt like there was just too much talk. But anyways, as disappointing as the Broncos are, the Bears are far more disappointing. This is, you know how I make statements, Tom. This might be the worst NFL football team I've ever seen. I would not be shocked if the Bears win 0 games this year.
The 07 Lions might have a word to say. I mean,
that's what I'm thinking. That's literally what I'm thinking. Are they worse than the 07 Lions? I got to go up and down the roster. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, to give credence to your thought, I used to have the one win I could count on for the Chicago Bears was against the Arizona Cardinals that they have. I forgot what week it is, but it's fairly later on in the season.
I'm taking the Cardinals.
That might not be so guaranteed given how the rest of the team plays, and we might be seeing Kyler Murray back in action by then. Who knows? So, definitely a disappointing start. Just think about this for a second. Don't need to comment on it. There's an alternate reality where instead of Matt Eberflus, Mike McDaniel is the Chicago Bears head coach. Moving on to Caleb Williams.
Real quick. I don't know if you saw the same tweet I saw. Just real quick. They could have hired Belichick in like 99. They were considering him, didn't go after Belichick. But then when they had Andy Reid on the market, could have gotten Andy Reid. They could have gotten Bruce Arians even as a backup, went and got Mark Trestman. So now they could have had Mike McDaniel, and we got Matt Eberflus, who, by the way, I'm not convinced he makes the season. I mean, if you start like 0-8, 0-9, I think he's got to go, right? He's got to go.
I think so. I can't remember if the Bears have ever fired somebody in season. I think maybe they did that with Trestman. I have to look it up. But,
it's karma for Lovie Smith. You go 10-6, you dump Lovie Smith. This is called karma, Tom Casselman. Karma.
I don't. Revisionist history they would be getting into. So
okay.
Regardless, we talk about a little bit about all 4 teams are 0-3. Their prize is most likely going to be Caleb Williams. And I say most likely because, first off, knock on wood, injuries can still be a thing. Second off, makes enough money in NIL that if he looks and says, hey, I see what the Chicago Bears have done to not 1, but 2 rookie quarterbacks they drafted and tried to develop, I would rather play elsewhere. But Caleb Williams is certainly going to be a prize for whomever is able to get their hands on him when he declares for the draft. He is certainly rolling right now, as you mentioned. He is already a Heisman winner. I mean, just in short, with him versus the field this year. I think it's him. I think that Caleb Williams is the guy. I mean, you can make all the other arguments for all these other quarterbacks. And it's also that it's not always the case that the Heisman winner is also a phenomenal pro prospect. I mean, I forgot what year, but like Jason White didn't even play in the NFL and he won a Heisman.
Because of injuries. Yeah.
Tim Tebow won a Heisman and he
Eric
wasn't
Crouch,
really,
again, running quarterback, different. But yeah,
so,
100% agree with where you're going.
This is, something where like Caleb Williams is like the prince who was promised type of thing.
Are you quoting Game of Thrones here? Or was that just
I've heard the phrase before. I have no idea if it's from Game of Thrones.
Well, it is from Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
But it's probably from something before Game of Thrones. But that's
possibly
a very Game of Thrones line.
Possibly. But yeah, I mean, he's phenomenal. He was great in Oklahoma. He was great last year at USC, playing for Lincoln Riley. I mean, there is no reason to think that Caleb Williams and the Trojans are going to just roll their way to the college football playoff, that he's going to get the big stage. I do think, I mean, from Caleb, to win a national title, that's worth trying to stick around. I could see if USC kind of falls off the pace a little bit, if they don't make that college football playoff, I could see him not going for a bowl game, and I would 100% support that. But that is a conversation that might not even take place. In short, he's just phenomenal so far, and there were a lot of great seasons going on. But we're getting deeper into September, October, right around the corner. This is where we're going to start seeing the different tiers of players level off. I mean, Shedeur Sanders, people are saying, hey, he's the September Heisman. And then we saw him go up against a really, really good Oregon team. This is where, as we get into conference play, we're going to start seeing some separation. Caleb Williams, of course, has massive, massive talent. I think that he's going to take hold of the Heisman race and kind of sort of make it a little bit boring.
I think so as well, because I look at, first off, the one way he won't get it is that USC plays in the toughest conference in college football. Oregon's a great team. Washington's a great team. Utah, who's played without their quarterback this year, who actually beat USC twice last year. There's a lot of great football teams in the Pac-12. I know the conference, who knows what the future of the conference is going to be. But right now, this season, Tom, it's actually not the SEC. It's the Pac-12 that is the best conference in college football. That's the one way he doesn't get it if USC loses 3 or 4 games. I don't think that's going to happen, though, because I do still think they're the most explosive offense. He's got 15 touchdown passes, no picks, second most touchdown passes in the nation. He doesn't play a lot of second halves, does not play a lot of third quarters, does not play hardly any fourth quarters. They actually run the ball more than they should because they're up 30 every game. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns, 2. No interceptions from Caleb Williams. He's been immaculate. You look at a lot of the big-name programs, Ohio State, not a great quarterback right now. Georgia, not a great quarterback. Michigan, not a great quarterback. The Florida State kid is a, Heisman candidate. Oregon, Bo Nix is a Heisman candidate. But a lot of the top college programs right now do not necessarily have a top-level quarterback. They've got good quarterbacks, no doubt about that, but not really a top-level quarterback out there. So I think he is the guy. We know quarterbacks win this award. If I had to take Caleb Williams with the field, I am 100% taking Caleb Williams over the field. He is a phenomenal player. Real quick, I have read on this a little bit. There is some rumors there that he is considering coming back. It's something that I think his father had said or something, that he's not making a decision. He's not a shoo-in for the NFL. And yeah, if the Bears get the first pick, which they probably will, I would say it's probably in his best interest not to come out. But then again, the Bears might get the first pick next year anyway. But you know how it goes. But yeah, Caleb Williams is definitely going to be the second guy since Archie Griffin, 1974, 1975, Ohio State running back, the history of college football. Williams will be the second guy to win 2 Heisman trophies. And hey, maybe that's another motivation to come back. How about 3, Tom? How about 3 for Caleb Williams the next year? So
That'd
yes,
be something. Just
he's
really
the Heisman.
Quickly, just something to clarify really quickly on the Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because I went ahead and for fun looked up the on Bovada the odds for the Heisman
Michael
Trophy
Penix on there, by the way? He's doing great at Washington.
Yeah, you've got Caleb Williams at plus 350, Michael Penix plus 400, Quinn Ewers plus 500, Bo Nix plus
Texas
800.
kid, Oregon kid.
Yeah, so like there's still, I mean, there can be a conversation, and particularly if Oregon gets the drop on USC and wins. I'm not really a fan of saying that if your team's undefeated, that gives you a leg up or something like that, just because as important as the quarterback is, I feel like it's slightly less important at the college level, that overall talent on the rest of the team is, kind of diminishes how important a quarterback needs to be in order for a team to be successful.
It showed in the Oregon-Colorado game, by the way. Shedeur Sanders is a better quarterback than Bo Nix. Shedeur Sanders has no offensive lineman whatsoever. One of his top receivers was out, so less talent. At least this game, I think they get Hunter back. That's a different story, but his top receiver arguably out. Oregon won the battle in the trenches, which is something they talked about. Deion Sanders. He's got the skill kids all over the place. He's got to get the big boys. Got to get the big boys, on defense and offense. That's what Colorado's lacking. That's what Oregon has. Good news for USC is they've got the playmakers, the big boys, and the quarterback, and the coach.
Exactly.
So USC is pretty much set.
Absolutely. Well, a bunch of teams that are decidedly not set as we move over to the baseball diamond. We are seeing the new playoff format work out exactly the way baseball wants it to. If we're going back to the pre-pandemic, like the old system where it's the 3 division winners and the 1 wild card, we're looking at a situation where everything is long since decided. As the Tampa Bay Rays are up 10 games in the wild card race, have long since clinched a spot there. In fact, I think they're kind of having an outside chance of catching the Baltimore Orioles for the overall division. And then in the National League, we've got the Philadelphia Phillies up 6 games. That race also would be decided. So baseball's getting exactly what they want, kind of flying a little bit in the face of the purists in terms of, hey, the best team should make it. This kind of dilutes because we've got teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks, Chicago Cubs, Miami Marlins, Cincinnati Reds, all teams that are hovering around 500. Diamondbacks are going to finish, of course, they're 83-74, so they're slightly above, as are the Cubs. But you get what I'm saying, where we're kind of, looking at some of the, quite frankly, middle of the road baseball teams that are going to have a shot at the postseason. So starting out in the National League, 4 teams fighting for 2 spots. And just really quickly to run down on where that race currently stands.
Sure.
The Diamondbacks have a +1. They're up a game, basically. They've got the 2nd wild card spot as of right now. The Cubs holding the 3rd and final wild card spot. Miami Marlins, half a game behind the Cubs. Cincinnati Reds are a game and a half behind Chicago. So, Kamen, we've got 4 teams for 2 spots. The Chicago Cubs, the only team with a positive run differential. They're +100. All these other teams are negative run differential. So, do our hometown Cubbies hold on to a spot, or do we potentially see the Marlins or the Reds playing spoiler here?
Yeah, just a couple of things to clarify on all this, Tom. They don't have a game 163 anymore. That's something they've wiped off with this new system. So they are going tiebreaker. One thing the Cubs do not have going for them, the tiebreaker. They lose it against all these teams. They lose it against the D-backs. They lose it against the Marlins, the Reds. So the Cubs got to finish ahead of everyone else. So I'm going to start by saying the team that I think is the most safe. It's the Diamondbacks. There's only 5 or 6 games left, right? To be a game ahead, to be a game and a half, to be 2 games ahead, to be 2.5 games ahead. Most of them have 5. I think there's a couple teams in the AL who might have 6. The Marlins, I think, have 6 games because of a rain out, but 5 or 6 games. We are literally at the end. If you're ahead right now, you've got a lot more room for error. So I'm going to say the Diamondbacks make it. They're also playing the White Sox the next 2 days, which
yes, they are.
Should
That's going to be a huge boon.
I know they played the Astros the last weekend. The Astros are also fighting for a playoff spot, but if they can get 2 games on the White Sox, which I think they will, that's a big boom. So I'm putting the Diamondbacks in simply because they're further ahead now, and they are playing the White Sox. I'm going to eliminate the Reds for kind of the same reason. They are pretty far behind. They're 2.5 back of the Cubs, I believe. They are
1.5.
1.5 back of the Cubs, correct. So that's still a lot of games. There's so few games left. I mean, the Reds got to go almost perfect. So for me, it goes down to the Cubs and the Marlins for my final wild card team. You know me, I'm a Chicago Cubs fan. I hope the Cubs make it. But I think Suzuki not catching the ball last night. Cubs up 1 run in the bottom of the 8th, 2 outs against the best team in baseball, the Atlanta Braves. It's a fly ball, should have caught it. They had runners on 2nd and 3rd. I don't know if you lost it in the lights. What happened exactly? Doesn't catch the ball. Braves score 2. Cubs lose. Cubs were up like, was it 4-0 in that game? They were up a lot. It is the Braves. Yes, the Braves can score in bunches. But that play right there, I think, cost the Cubs the wild card spot. I really do, because I think the Marlins play the Pirates. They also play currently the Mets, which are two bad baseball teams. Baseball is a weird game. Just because you play the bad teams and the good teams maybe doesn't translate as much as it should, but I think it makes some sort of difference. The Cubs played the Braves, by the way, who are the best team in baseball, trying to lock up that 1 seed. And in baseball, it's a little bit different. I think you can maybe rest your pitchers, but there's really no advantage to resting your hitters. I mean, the risk of injury is lower than other sports, and I think it's actually a disadvantage not to play your hitters because they lose that rhythm of not playing. So I don't really see the Braves and Brewers really resting guys personally in their lineup, and that Braves lineup is just ridiculous. So the Cubs have the toughest schedule. They don't have the tiebreaker against Miami. My gut feeling says that, Cubs and Marlins finish dead even, and the Marlins get in because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. So I've got the D-backs. Phillies, like you said, are already in. D-backs, Marlins, Cubs just out. Reds behind them. I am hopeful the Cubs can sneak in over the Marlins, but I'm going to say no. Had they won last night, I might have said yes. But that play literally changed their season. I know it's one play. Yeah. It's one play. There's so many other plays.
It gets magnified for sure.
But this one gets magnified big time.
Yeah, I mean, look no farther than early September, dropping 3 of 4 to the Diamondbacks, dropping 2 of 3 in Colorado, getting swept in 3 against the Diamondbacks, dropping 2 or 3 against Pittsburgh. The Cubs have really scuffled down the stretch, and
the Colorado and Pittsburgh ones were bad too.
I mean, they were able to salvage with a sweep over Colorado earlier this week, or over the weekend rather, with a 3-game sweep. That really is what's put them in this position. But yeah, like you said, this isn't like NFL or basketball where you can go ahead and run the second stringers out. Their rosters aren't that deep and aren't that big for the Atlanta Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers. And quite frankly, I mean, the Braves want to keep a good thing going. And I'm sure that the Brewers, in addition to wanting to keep a good thing going, even though they've locked up the division, it's a rival. And you don't, the last thing you want to do is let your rival in because you took your foot off the gas and all of a sudden you're down 2 to 3, 3 to 5, 4 to 7, whatever it might be when you're meeting up with them in the postseason. And, Milwaukee has that whole, you can't really buy tickets if you're from an Illinois zip code or something along those lines. Like they restrict how many tickets.
It's called Wrigley North because the Cubs fans invade it.
So I mean, I'm sure that the Milwaukee Brewers, they definitely want to be a little petty about this. So I definitely see them showing out in that series as well. The Marlins have 4 games against the Mets. They've got or 3 games against the Mets. Excuse me. They've got a doubleheader today. Yesterday's game was postponed, followed by tomorrow, and then they're going to be in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's certainly not a phenomenal team either. So I also give a slight edge to the Marlins, and of course the White Sox going up against the Diamondbacks. And that means I think that the Arizona's going to have a big enough cachet that even if they go in and have a 1-2 series or get swept in Houston, that they'll have enough banked up that they'll be able to slide in, backdoor in for that playoff spot. So I think we're of a similar mindset on that one. I mean, I know obviously it would be nice if the Cubs did make it in, certainly as a run differential plus 100. That's one of the better run differentials in the league, quite frankly.
But what does it tell you? Maybe they're not great in close games, which is what these will be down the stretch, right?
Yeah, I mean, like that's more.
They're not as bad as the Padres, who I saw a stat. The Padres are the second worst team in the history of baseball in 1-run games.
Yeah,
they've got an even better run differential. They're under 500.
That to me, I mean, you know where I fall on this one. I'm more that's more variance as opposed to ability to perform in a clutch game type of thing. But by the way, you left the Padres off. They still have a 0.1% chance of winning out and grabbing that last playoff spot.
Right.
So,
okay.
I'm not going to say. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it could happen. Moving over to the American League, things are a little bit more settled. We've got 3 teams for 2 spots. And really, I mean, there's an outside chance that some teams that aren't on this rundown. We've got the Blue Jays, Astros, and Mariners fighting for the 2 spots. The Texas Rangers have not yet locked up their division. Let me see really quickly.
I think 2.5 up, though. They'd really have to blow it.
Yeah.
Over the Astros and Mariners. I
Yeah,
think it's
technically they have not clinched a postseason spot yet, so it is again possible.
sure.
This would be a 2.9% chance of the Rangers missing the playoffs, but for the purposes of this conversation, I'm willing to say that they get in because let me just open them up in a new tab really quickly. Um, they've got aren't the Rangers and the Astros are facing each other at some point, aren't they? Though
No, the Astros and Mariners play each other tonight.
that's going to be big. Oh yeah, it's the
Yep.
Mariners and the Rangers that are facing off against each other in the next series. That's what's happening.
Yep.
So yeah, in terms of who do you think makes it in Common? I mean, who grabs these spots because it certainly is anybody's race right now, as everybody's within a really really close margin. We've got the Blue
Toronto
Jays
was
up a game and a half.
right, and one and a half over Houston, 2 against the Mariners. I think again, same deal. 5 games left, 6 games left. Toronto 1.5 again, more wiggle room. Blue Jays have got in simply because they're so far ahead. Also because Houston and Seattle play each other tonight, so one of those teams is going to lose another half game no matter what. So Toronto, I've got in. It really goes down to Houston and the Mariners. So Houston is a half game ahead of Seattle. So it kind of goes down to the game tonight in many ways. I like the Mariners, by the way, do have the tiebreaker. So they finished tied. Seattle's got the tiebreaker. I'm taking Houston. Framber Valdez on the mound today. He's a better pitcher than Bryce Miller. They're a half game up. They win this game. They're up a game and a half. Houston's got all that playoff experience. They're the defending champions. I mean, along with the Dodgers, they've been the best team in baseball the last 5, 6, 7 years. The Mariners play the Rangers, you just said, right? So the Rangers got to lock up that division. Speaking of putting their best guys out there, Houston does play Arizona, though. So they're playing a team that's also fighting for a playoff spot. Houston, I will say, because they're clutcher. They've done this before. It's basically a playoff setting for them, which we've seen they do excel in that setting. They've won 2 World Series in recent memory. They've been in the World Series another time. And I think Valdez somehow is 12-11, which is weird, despite the great ERA, but he's going to ball out tonight. So give me Houston to lock up the final wild card spot. Toronto, Houston in the wild card slots. Tom Casselman.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm going to lock in Toronto just because I need somebody from my preseason World Series prediction to make it into the playoffs and continue to have a chance. And you know what?
Talk about mine. Mine was worse.
Curious. What do I have to look up? Do I even still have it? Hang on, let's see.
Don't look it up. You don't even want to know who I picked.
Mine was Padres over Blue Jays. Were you like Yankees and Dodgers or something like that?
Yankees. I had Yankees.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those years there are a lot of injuries sustained there. But for me, I mean, I'm going to pick Seattle just because I want it to be Seattle.
Sure.
I don't want it to be Houston. I still have not gotten over the cheating scandal that Houston underwent, getting that light slap on the wrist. That just has never felt good. The only nice thing about the World Series last year was that Dusty Baker finally won a World Series. And I'm a big fan of Dusty Baker. He's a very, very likable guy. So I'm glad that he gets to finally have a World Series on his resume. But I'm not interested in cheering for anybody else in Houston. So he's got that ring. He can enjoy it sitting at home. And we can watch the Seattle Mariners instead, who have not won a World Series ever, haven't made it to a World Series. Not saying that they're going to this year, but I certainly would like to see them have the opportunity
go
to
Julio
do so
Rodriguez.
On that. Exactly. Go Eugenio Suarez, I believe, at third base. They've got some really good players on there. So that'll wrap up the baseball content for our show. We now move on to Locks of the Week, where for once, and this doesn't often happen, but we get to both feel great, patting ourselves on the back with our picks. I think the only one that was, it was a lot. I wasn't even expecting the Oregon game to go the way that it did. 21 is a lot of points, but you'll do the rundown really quick. The recap.
Yeah, Colorado plus 21 at Oregon. I just felt it was a big line. That was the one I missed. Oregon winning 42-6. My lines were weird this week because none of them were close. I had one I lost badly and two I won by a lot. Dolphins -6 over the Broncos. Dolphins winning 70-20. No sweating on that one. Chiefs -12.5 over the Bears. Chiefs winning 41-10. I think it was 41-0 at one point until former Mizzou Tiger playing Gabbert got in there, started throwing picks. B-Gabs! One was not his fault, just to clarify. One was off the receiver's hands. The other one was his fault. You were 3-0, Tom. Eagles -4.5 over the Bucks. Eagles winning 20. Actually, you didn't have to sweat that one either. 25-11. And I think it was kind of a late score for the Bucks that made it somewhat closer, but not close. This one you were sweating. Chargers money line over the Vikings. I don't care what the analytics say. If it's a 4th and 1 or whatever it was from your own 24-yard line, you should not have gone for it. As Scott Van Pelt said, had Staley not, had they lost the game, you might have gotten fired. So Chargers win 28-24. As great as Kirk Cousins has looked, not coming up clutch late with that throw to Hawkinson. Chiefs over.
Hawkinson had 2 hands on the ball. That's more on the tight end, in my opinion.
All right. Well, either way.
Yeah.
Chiefs over 31.5 points. They scored 41. They were right at that number at like halftime, Tom. So you were
I
not
think it was
sweating
like
much.
31, 32 at half. So
that was
31
or 34. I can try to remember what it was exactly.
It was
so you were 3-0. I was 2-1. Not only are we 5-1 as a show for the week, I am 6-3 on the season. My 2-1 trend continues each week. Probably going to go 2-1 again this week because that's the way it goes. You are now over 500. You are on the 1-2 train now with the 3-0 mark. You're 5-4. So we're both over 500, Tom.
Yeah,
this is good.
Much like the Chicago Bears, I too did not take the preseason seriously, so I kind of got a little bit of a slow start there. But jumping out, I mean, the first one, we already talked about this game. We both picked the Packers to win. So, of course, I'll pick the Packers plus a 1.5 at home. Let's go ahead and give me the Cincinnati Bengals -2 against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans have not looked great this season. Their only win coming with an overtime field goal against the Chargers. But beyond that, they have just been struggling. No real passing game to speak of. No real run game to speak of. I mean, this is not something that we have in the rundown, but are we beginning to see the beginning of the end for Derrick Henry simply because he's approaching that magic or unmagical number that running backs reach, both in age and number of carries? Joe Burrow, I mean, is only going to continue to get healthier, and the Bengals are going to find their stride. I think that they will have a not necessarily a super big win, but -2. That's over. That's less than a field goal. I think they can win by that much. And then I'll go for my most confident pick of the week: the Seattle Seahawks -1 on the road against the New York Giants. The Giants have looked abysmal. It took a really big rally to go up against one of the worst teams in the NFL to win against the Arizona Cardinals. Saquon Barkley most likely is trending to being out in this game, and we saw what happened to their offense. I mean, I know they're going up against the San Francisco 49ers. That's a phenomenal defense, but they look stagnant. I mean, they look stagnant even with a fully healthy team against the Dallas Cowboys. Seahawks are a bit of a step down on that side of the ball, but certainly they have the weapons on offense. They can run, they can pass.
37 points every week recently.
The Giants just don't have enough firepower to keep up with Seattle. So this feels like the easiest number to pick of the week is Seattle -1 on the road. I'm not going to throw out any Kamen Entchev proclamations of what people should do with their money, but I saw that. I was skimming through. I usually do a once-over on the NFL lines, and then I go, okay, what do I like? What do I not like? I got to the bottom of the list. I said, well, I only have to look for 2 now because I've got Seattle.
I actually agree with all of your picks for what it's worth. I don't know if I'm going to put a curse on it, but I would say might be a 6-0 week this week, Tom. While I do agree with your picks, I think there's 3 lines for me that are more obvious than the Seattle line.
I know one, but
I'm going to jinx myself, but I feel really, really good about my picks this week. As good as I've felt, and I've been 2-1 this year. So I'm starting with obviously the one that Dolphins +3 at the Bills. Miami's 3-0 this year, 3-0 against the spread. You win by 50 points in the NFL, and you're an underdog? You kidding me, Vegas? Oh, Vegas is going to keep on losing money to Miami. Highest scoring offense in the league, best team in the league right now. They can beat the Bills outright, by the way. I picked Miami to win outright. That 3-point cushion makes me feel even better. Last year, all 3 games, Miami and Buffalo decided by 3 or less. It's different here, new teams. Miami's even better this year, by the way. Worst case, it pushes for going off that. But, I talked about it earlier. There is too many toys in Miami. Josh Allen has Stephon Diggs. Tua has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. 2. He's got 2 running backs now. Buffalo's got 1. I've bet on Miami every single week this year, Tom. I have been right every single week. Why stop what's working? I think twice on the show, but also bet on them outside the show. They were my one I left off week 1, that 4th pick we all have. So it's going to be Miami. Dolphins +3. I think they're playing like the best team in the league. Now, that Chiefs defense is scary. The Chiefs offense only going to get better. Kansas City is amazing. The 49ers are amazing. But Miami right now looks like the best team at this stage in the season. 70 points. That is the 3rd most in the history of the league. They could have gotten a touchdown, could have got a field goal, could have set the record late, decide to kneel instead. But Miami's impressive because they're really good passing and running. 5 pass touchdowns, 5 rush touchdowns. They're just so much talent, such great coaching on that team. McDaniel on offense, Fangio on defense. Like I said earlier in our show, the Buffalo Bills have not done great against great teams on offense. Miami, Cincinnati, Kansas City, as good as that Bills defense is, when they've gone up against the best, they've gotten beat on that side of the ball. So Dolphins +3. I have a theme on locks of the week this week. I'm going with teams that have been either really bad or really good against the spread. Miami's 3-0 against the spread. The Bears are 0-3 against the spread. So I'm taking Broncos -3 at the Bears. This is an atrocious Chicago team. Maybe the worst defense, maybe the worst offense in the league. Denver is really, really bad. It's the 2 worst defenses in points per game in the NFL. But Denver has a better offense. Russell Wilson, Sean Payton, their offense is okay. They've been okay. They're middle of the pack on offense right now. Chicago should be even worse than the stats say. A lot of garbage time against Kansas City when the backups are in. Garbage time against the Packers. Chicago has no offensive ability. They've lost every game by double digits. You're telling me they got to lose by only 4 or more? Oh, come on. Take that money to the bank and #fade the Bears. The other theme is the Arizona Cardinals covering the spread every week. Look, Tom, numbers sometimes lie. Numbers even out. But if I'm going up picking 2 teams that are 3-0 against the spread and 1 team that's 0-3, if I lose this week, I can go home saying I played the numbers, I played the data, I can live with that. The Cardinals, they're 1-2, but 3-0 against the spread. They could easily be 3-0. They should at least be 2-1. They just went in and demolished Dallas. They were double-digit underdog, won by double digits. The 49ers, yes, they're more talented. 49ers, along with the Dolphins and the Chiefs, probably the 3 best teams in the league. Buffalo in that discussion, of course, but 14 is a lot of points. Arizona's playing with a chip on their shoulder. It's a divisional game. What do we see in the NFC West very often? NFC West divisional games are very close. We saw it with the Rams even playing the Niners tough. The NFC West has always produced a lot of thrilling close games. 14 points is a lot. If I'm Arizona coming off a double-digit win against the Cowboys, I'm like, these guys going to disrespect us again? You kidding me? Really? 14 points? Arizona's covering 14. No problem, Tom Casselman. No problem.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to seeing how those locks pan out. Kamen, we've got some breaking NBA news. This is from about an hour ago.
So right when we started the show.
That Woj broke. So we've got a massive trade. So up to you how you want to go with this.
Go ahead.
There's a trade. Damian Lillard is going to the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, boy.
And it's part of a 3-team deal. Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Toumani Camara, and a 2029 unprotected Milwaukee first is going to the Blazers, along with a couple other picks. The Phoenix Suns, the third team in this deal, are getting Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. So, I mean, we can punt the ball in trivia and statement of the week if you want to break this down, because it is so rare that we get breaking news on this show. I mean, what are your initial thoughts if you want to dig into it? Of course, if you want to stick with our current programming, I'm down for that too.
Can we do both, or are you in a hurry here?
Not a hurry per se, but
I'm going to make the trivia and the statements really quick, and I'm going to make this portion really quick as well. Now, this is my, first statements. You know how I am, Tom. I love bold statements. I'm going to say Milwaukee Bucks, NBA champions this year. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard on the same team.
And Chris Middleton, they kept him.
That inside-outside combo. In the offseason, Giannis made a comment, I'm not sure if I'm staying in Milwaukee. I want to win a championship. Was Milwaukee listening? Because they definitely were. They just got him one of the best shooters in the league. I know you love Drew Holiday. Very good player.
I do.
Drew Holiday is not Damian Lillard. So I was too obsessed. I'll be completely honest, Tom. I heard what you said. I just looked it up. I'm not even thinking about the other teams. All I'm focused on is Milwaukee. Giannis is a top 3, top 2, top 1 player in the league. Damian Lillard is easily top 10, if not better. Those guys are fantastic. The Bucks have role players. I mean, one thing about Giannis that's maybe the one knock on him is he's not a great shooter. Do you go to him at the end of the game? Damian Lillard, his nickname is Dame Time. That's his nickname. So all I'm going to say is my first thought, Tom Casselman, Milwaukee Bucks, NBA champions this upcoming season. If I had to bet on one team, I don't know if I'm confident enough to say Bucks versus the field, given that both guys have had injuries. But if you told me pick one team as the favorite to win the NBA this season, I would say Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, as much as I truly appreciate Drew Holiday, I wouldn't mind if the Blazers decided to flip him to the Bulls. That'd be something fun. And I really wish that the Bucks had been able to find a way to hang on to him, but you have to give up something to get something. That's certainly, that's a big win for Milwaukee. I would go so far as to say, you just got better. My one concern is Drew Holiday. One of his biggest assets is that he is such a great perimeter defender that he can take, kind of 1 through 3 from another team.
Offense over defense, 2023, Tom Casselman.
We'll see. This certainly puts the Bucks.
He didn't stop Jimmy Butler on the perimeter. I'll say that much.
True. True. This puts the Bucks right atop the East. It went from being a pretty even conversation in my book between Milwaukee and Boston to now being pretty squarely in Milwaukee's favor for coming out of the East. Certainly going to be a dangerous team to watch. Are they the favorite to win
the championship, Tom? If you had to pick one team, not versus the field, one team, bet your life on it. Who are you picking to win the championship? That was a bad one. That's a little still, one team to win the championship.
I'm going Milwaukee on this one.
Right,
I think
cool.
they've got a really, really good shot. giving up Drew Holiday, like I said, that hurts. But looking at some of the other guys, just like the actual players that they gave away, I mean, Grayson Allen is replaceable. Nasir Little was in. He was from Portland. Keon Johnson, I think, was in Portland. So yeah, these are a bunch of other role players going to Phoenix that come from different places. So yeah, I think that Milwaukee did a really nice job keeping most of its roster intact and getting a pretty significant upgrade at point guard, even as much as it pains me to say. So big news there as far as trivia. Really quickly, everybody knows how much we love the University of Kansas. Kamen. So I've got an interesting trivia fact about the University of Canada. Kansas.
Can we skip your trivia and just do mine?
Sure, we can do that if you like.
Is it positive Kansas trivia?
Depends on how you want to play it. I'll just roll it out real quick. Kansas football is 4-0 to start back-to-back seasons. Positive. When was the last time that happened?
2007, when they lost to Mizzou.
Back. Do my best Chris Berman here.
Gale Sayers, 1942.
Back.
1931.
Further back.
1902.
1913 to 1915. That's when they started out. So that's,
kind of good.
Kind of good. I just thought it was just like, look at how bad Kansas is at football. But
I like it.
Mizzou historically not much better. What you got?
4-0, baby. Mizzou 4-0. Ranked in the top 25, by the way. All right. Speaking of, Kansas City, which one thing I have not addressed, I am all aboard the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce relationship. I hope it works out. I hope there's marriage. I hope everything works out. I absolutely love it, Tom Casselman. I am such a major fan of it. Let's go, Kelce and T Swift. Patrick Mahomes was arguably not the most famous guy in the stadium on Sunday with Travis Kelce's boo. Taylor Swift.
Not arguably. He definitely was not the most famous person.
Okay. Well, there you go. He did, however, become the fastest quarterback to reach 25,000 pass yards. Did it in just 83 games. Mm-hmm. Can you name the other 4 fastest quarterbacks to 25,000 pass yards in the history of the NFL? One of them is going to shock you. There's 2 that are no-brainers. The third makes sense. One is an absolute shocker.
All right, so I'm going to go, because he played right away, Peyton Manning.
97 games, tied for the third fastest. That was one of the 2 no-brainers.
Mm-hmm. The other no-brainer, let's see, Brady didn't throw that much. Drew Brees kind of struggled. I'll say Drew Brees, but I know he struggled early on. Had to play early, had to be passing on it. Would Dan Marino be on the list? He was one of the other guys.
Marino's the other no-brainer. He was the previous fastest, 92 games. There's 2 left. One that, you'll get it when I give you clues, but you're not going to get it without clues. The other, I think you could get.
Let's see. I'm going to go old school. Dan Fouts?
Not old school. So do not go old school. You watched.
Okay, that was the only other old school
you watched all these guys you watched. A lot. Like you watched all these guys. Reno's the one that maybe you didn't watch, but
no, definitely didn't watch.
All these other guys you have watched.
Ben Roethlisberger?
Not Big Ben. Same era. Maybe
Matthew Stafford.
No, but you're sort of warm on that one.
Matt Ryan?
Not Matt Ryan. So the first one, the one that's more obvious, I'll say he's in Roethlisberger's era, retired a little bit before him. So
retired a little bit before.
Older than Roethlisberger, but in the same era-ish.
Well, Phillip Rivers was the same class, so it's not Phillip Rivers. Who was slightly before?
Don't think NFL draft. I'll say that much. There's one clue that would totally give it away. I can't give you that clue.
Wouldn't be Steve McNair, would it? Aaron McNair?
Oh my God. You're getting warm, but not quite.
Not quite.
There's another clue that would give it away. Oh my God, this is funny. This is funny.
Not Trent Green. Not Mark Bulger. Is it Mark Bulger?
No, I'm just saying you keep beating around the bush. You are like so warm with these guesses. Like you're like
Rich Gannon, like
scorching.
essentially,
You're scorching hot right now, Tom Casselman. You are literally on top of the fire and scorching as hot as you can be with
like
kind of both of your guesses,
I'm
but one in
thinking like Madden
particular.
2005. Donovan McNabb, Rich Gannon, not Steve Young, not John Elway.
You are so. You couldn't be warmer, as I'll put it that way, without
Aaron
actually
Rodgers
getting
didn't
it.
retire before. Drew Bledsoe?
No.
Getting colder, I feel.
I'm trying. What did you just say right there?
Is it Kurt Warner?
It's Kurt Warner. Absolutely. He went from bagging groceries to the 99 Rams who won the whole thing. He was MVP. Greatest show on turf, throwing for yards left and right. Yeah. Absolutely. As I was like, you're like Mark Bolger. And then you mentioned you were talking Ben Roethlisberger and Steve McCarron. I was like, he played against the Super Bowl against both of these guys. So, and I was like, literally, Bolger was his replacement. So you are incredibly warm. So 83 games for Mahomes, 92 Marino, 97 Manning, 97 Warner, another guy who did it in 97 games. This is the hardest one. It's a guy that currently plays in the NFL. It's obviously a guy that has been very underappreciated. He was very underappreciated, and he's still kind of underappreciated, but he's starting to get a little bit more love. I would not have guessed this. I would not have guessed this guy personally. I would have maybe gotten there. I would not have guessed him. Very high draft pick. Very high draft pick. As high as you can go as far as draft picks, actually.
A number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
Still playing in the NFL.
And playing well. I mean, he might be a top 10 quarterback right now. I mean, if you look at all the stats, it's hard not to say that he's not a top 10 quarterback.
Well, is it Matthew Stafford? Because I said Stafford.
No, you're... Again, I will say you're warm. You are very warm.
Is it Jared Goff?
It's Jared Goff, traded for Matthew Stafford. Passing era, played with the Rams. Again, surprising, like I said.
He was dreadful with Jeff Fisher as his head. I didn't realize that he made up that much ground with Sean McVay.
A lot of passing yards. You can throw picks. This is passing yards, Tom.
All right.
Yeah. All right, real quick, statement of the week. I'm just going to make this one brief, but I'm going to say the Cowboys are nowhere even close to winning a Super Bowl. The nation was bamboozled 2 weeks in. Dallas doesn't have a second receiver. Dak Prescott ain't it. You need a top 10 quarterback to win the Super Bowl. He's probably just outside the top 10, but he's not top 10. Dak is not the guy to lead you to a Super Bowl. He's a third-round pick that had great players around him that, played a little bit better than he should have for his draft. He's kind of more looking like a third-round pick on a good football team. He's not it. Trayvon Diggs, injured. Horrible. Hate it. Hurting Dallas for sure. He wasn't the only reason. There's many factors in the Cardinals game. Without Trayvon Diggs especially, they got no chance to win the Super Bowl. We were talking about the Eagles and Niners. The Eagles and Niners are a full class above Dallas. Dallas is not in that conversation. Dallas has no chance to win the Super Bowl. It's either Eagles or Niners. Anyone else in the NFC, no chance. Dallas is not in that class. And this current roster, maybe a couple years ago, when they had Amari Cooper, they had Dalton Schultz. Zeke, by the way, say what you will say about Zeke. Their red zone offense is atrocious. Zeke is past his prime. What can he still do? Get red zone touchdowns. Tony Pollard in the open field, great. Maybe they should have held on to Zeke. So Dallas, with this roster, ain't it. They're going to make the playoffs. Maybe they win a playoff game. They're not winning more than one playoff game. I'll tell you that much. I guarantee it, as Charles Barkley would say.
I mean, Leonard Fournette's still available. My statement of the week, is going to be kind of sports adjacent. My statement of the week is that this Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, little whatever you want to call it, it's a bit. I think it is a bit. I think it's going to come out eventually as, I don't want to say necessarily a marketing ploy, but there are a lot of red flags around this. I mean, you look at the video, Jarrett Payton got backstage, whatever you want to call it, behind the scenes when Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are leaving the game. They don't look particularly amorous, and I don't even know if they're holding hands.
No, we're not holding hands. They're walking out. It's new. So the relationship is new, Tom.
Well, and if the relationship is so new, can you think of any mom who would be as buddy as Donna Kelce? Travis Kelce's mom.
Donna Kelce, legend.
Look at, like, if you look at the cutaways, look at how buddy she is with Taylor Swift. Nobody is reacting that way. Look.
Let me say that
their child's new significant other.
Taylor Swift is a 12-time Grammy winner. Mm-hmm. Travis Kelce's a great football player. Mm-hmm. He's getting the better end here. If you're Donna Kelce, you're telling me your son is dating Taylor Swift. I'd be sucking up to Taylor Swift like crazy. I'd be dating. Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Quotation marks.
I think it's a bit.
Potentially dating Travis Kelce. Potentially some sort of interest, which you can say what you want, Tom. There is some sort of interest there for her to go to his game.
I think we are going to hear an announcement that Taylor Swift will be performing at the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show. And if you think about how massive the NFL audience is, the Taylor Swift audience is even more massive. This is a way of trying, like, the Venn diagrams overlap too perfectly, where you have everybody who is.
Are you saying that they're just doing this to mess with the public, the two of them? I don't think so.
I don't know necessarily to mess with the public, but there's a lot of convenience going on here. There's a lot of people who follow the NFL who do not follow Taylor Swift, and vice versa. And by putting this together, you're blending two of the biggest entities in the world right now.
The Kansas City Chiefs will overtake Dallas as America's team thanks to Taylor Swift. Swifties!
I mean, if you go on Twitter, you can find all sort of Twitter threads where Swifties are figuring out football now and explaining. I think
it's good for the NFL. It's good for Taylor Swift. It's good for Travis Kelce. Everyone's brand is growing.
If wedding bells end up chiming, fantastic. I will be just as happy as everybody else that this happens.
Crossed.
I'm just saying, my sensor's up a little bit that I think this is closer to a bit than it is actual mutual attraction and interest in each other.
Adults having fun. Look, Travis Kelce, I think, is interested. Taylor Swift, I think, is trying to figure it out. That's where I land on
generous. I'll end it there. I think you're being generous.
I'll say this about Travis Kelce. He has matured. He's got a little party animal past. He's got a little bit of that vibe still, but he is a very, very funny guy. Not to get our relationship. What do women love? They love a man with a sense of humor. Travis Kelce's got jokes. Ooh. He's a funny guy.
Really my only calling card, actually.
Right? He's a funny guy, Travis Kelce. She could do better. She could also do worse. I'm not sure if he could do better, but not bad for Taylor. Again, assuming that he hones in that party side, he gets that wholesome, let me get Taylor Swift focused on just her. It could be a good match, Tom Casselman. He's got humor. He's got humor, Tom. Ladies like humor.
Humor is also subjective.
Humor. Of course. I mean, he's an athlete. What an athlete! He's the best tight end in the history of the NFL. I want this to work out. I want this to work out.
I know you want this to. I'm just saying.
I want this to work out. That's all I'm gonna say.
It was too convenient. Too many cutaways. My senses are tingling.
They got to get the cut. I mean, the NFL's like, I'm going to get every shot of Taylor Swift possible.
There's something bigger.
I actually think there wasn't enough cutaways, to be honest, because I had a little bit.
Over?
No, I don't know if I did. There is betting odds on him being at her tour, her being at the Super Bowl. There's all sorts of stuff you can actually place money on.
Too convenient.
I'm all for it. Taylor and Travis, have some fun. Let's make this work. Real quick, Leo Messi, hoping that he plays tonight, the U.S. Open Cup, hoping that he plays next week, Tom. No show next week. I'm going to go to the Messi game next Wednesday. Going to Mizzou, go Tigers, take down the LSU Tigers. So we'll be back in 2 weeks having this show, but always a pleasure to do stuff. I'll try to work more Messi into the show, the GOAT. I have to get Mahomes in because of the trivia, you know. And I'm glad that you also got the Swift and Kelsey in, because I was thinking we were over an hour in and there was not a single mention of this blossoming love. We're
Marketing ploy.
We're ending it the right way, Tom Casselman. So, I'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll be back at it in 2 weeks. Hopefully you've got a great week. Hopefully everyone that watches, listens, has a great week. Thank you so much, guys. And I'm thinking it might be a 6-0 betting locks of the week, Tom Casselman. So get the checkbooks out. Follow the show. Get the checkbooks out. There is some money to be made here. Have a great day, Tom, and we'll see you soon, sir.